Facilities that make this program possible are provided by the City of Highland Park. Programs are produced independently by members of the community. The City of Highland Park is not affiliated with the following program or the producers of public access programming and is not responsible for the content. The following program does not reflect the opinions of the City of Highland Park.
Hello, and welcome to Cahnmanns Current Events Roundtable. Today I have an amazing guest that I persuaded to come and talk to our viewers today because no one that I know of in the media has touched the subject at all. And I think I'm going to give credit to Asher Daniel, who is my guest today. And welcome to the show, Asher. Glad that you were able to come because no one has approached this topic, and that is the American. Asher is an American Pakistani Christian, and we're going to be talking about Christian persecution in the Middle East and in other countries as well. And I just want to read a little bit about what we're going to be talking about. And it's important to understand the social, historical, and political reasons why Christians are being persecuted. Understanding them more fully might be able to help us reduce persecution. We must do whatever we can to protect Christian brothers, our sisters, and not just in providing short-term relief, but helping them to build a global culture of religious freedom. And Asher, I really thank you again for coming on the show. I know that you were concerned about, what this, but this can what could be, on Facebook and all these things that people write, the bully situation, and but I am glad that you actually came on the show, and we're going to be talking about persecution of the Christian people. And before you came on and I had to do all this reading, to prepare myself for this show, I had no clue whatsoever about Christian persecution. I'm sure, I did my last show on anti-Israel as a new anti-Semitism, and, because you hear about anti-Semitism in the news, but you don't hear very much about anti-Christians. And you think about the Christians and the Crusades and how powerful they were. And here I find out so much going on. I believe it's 80% of Christians are being persecuted all around the world. So maybe we could talk a little bit about it and some of the countries and that are really like the top ones that are the most, that are doing the worst on persecution of Christians. So can you let me know a little bit? First of all, again, thank you for coming on the show, and tell us a little bit why you came on the show to talk today.
Well, after initially meeting you, have a conversation earlier, I just, it was one of those things where I felt like this was an opportunity for me to raise an awareness about what is going on with Christians around the world. Because, right now, as of lately, there's been so much in the news about anti-Semitism. And, that's great that there's an awareness about that and people are trying to work towards making that not be so prevalent. But, the other side of it in other parts of the world is about all the Christians that are suffering on a daily basis that no one ever hears about.
I was shocked when the number one country, well, maybe now I'm not that shocked. North Korea, with Kim Jong-un. But North Korea is one of the biggest abusers of Christianity.
Yes, they are.
Why? Why are they abusing? Why are these countries abusing?
The main reason I feel that these countries are abusing Christians is, number one, they hate freedom. They hate that that we're not under their control, basically, that we're not going to follow what they say because we have someone in our lives that we are more dedicated to than even our own lives. We're committed to Jesus Christ. And they can't stand that we have peace, that we have happiness, that we are good. Like I said, that people that live in the darkness hate the light. I think that's one of the main reasons right there, except for extreme, extremism.
Yeah, in China, we had one of my other shows was in China that they were persecuting the Falun Gong or Gong or Zhong. It depends on where the correct pronunciation. And we had a young man and his wife. The man came on the show and talked about the 9.5 years that he and his wife were in prison just because they were practicing. It was a yoga type thing, and they saw it as a religious point of view. And I have seen it practiced, and to me, it's just another type of yoga. And they're being persecuted. And here, Christianity, I mean, this is the basis of the United States England started on Christianity, Judaism, Christianity, and we followed the Crusades. Remember, the Crusades were the Christians were the abusers
right.
in what that era of time, and now they're being abused.
Well, what happened at those times, I know that throughout history, Christians, the tables turned and say, oh, well, look what Christians did before. But I assure you that whatever was done during the Crusades or even the Salem witch trials, those are atrocities. Those are not, there's nowhere in the Bible where you find support that anyone should do those kinds of things. Those people did those things for their own political and personal agenda.
And what form do you tell a little bit about the different forms that it exists in? What is happening when we talk about? Is it just verbal abuse? Is it what kind of beatings? What are we talking about?
It's really sad. Everything from just verbal abuse walking down the street, to physical beatings, to kidnapping, to rape, to forced marriages, to slavery. There's just all of this going on there all the time. Every single day they have to deal with this. To the point where, even children going to school have to deal with being abused every single day because their name. People know, oh, okay, well, that's a Christian name. Okay, this person's a Christian. Okay, let's get a rise out of him.
Well, what do they want practice? What is the religion that they want people to, we're talking about in different, I have a list of different countries that North Korea, Somalia, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Sudan. What are the religions, what is the religious groups that they want them to practice? If it isn't Christianity, what are some of the religions that they want them to practice or not practice?
Well, I really can't speak for North Korea. I think they're more, communist?
Yeah.
That's part of why, but the other countries that you named are primarily Islamic countries. Now, I would like to also state that, what we're talking about are not the majority of Islamic people that live in this country, that live around the world, that are very peaceful, loving people that are an asset to our society. I'm not talking about those people at all. We're talking about the minority that follow some of the teachings in the Quran that promote violence.
And the Christians are being persecuted because they believe in Christ. Is that what it is?
Yes.
And they feel that that's not their God, and the Muslims, they want them to believe in Muhammad or.
Well, initially, everyone that does not believe the way that they believe is an infidel. So either they're to be convert or killed.
You mentioned something we were eating at the Bluegrass today, and which was great food, and we were talking. You were talking to me about a young woman that her father that he was upset because she's practicing Christianity.
This was a young girl in Uganda.
How old was she about?
I don't. I think she was maybe 9 to 12 years old, something. She was very young.
A young girl. So it wasn't a teenage girl. It was a young girl.
Very young
girl.
Say
she was around 12 or so.
So somebody came to their village and told them about somebody named Jesus Christ. She heard the story about Jesus and what he did, and she gave her life to him, basically. So when she went home, she told her father, and he was furious. He said, well, if you don't stop believing in Jesus, I'm going to kill you and your brother. So she didn't stop going to church. One day, she came home. Her father had locked her away in a room and said, set her on this mat and said, if you move from this mat, then you're denouncing Jesus Christ. If you believe he's your real Lord and Savior, you won't move from this mat. He locked her in the room, and he didn't return for 3 months.
Oh my God! And the only way, how did she eat or drink or?
Well, what happened is that her brother dug a hole under the door, and he would pour water right in there in the hole in the dirt, and she would lap it up like a dog.
Oh, bad.
And sometimes he'd take some fried bananas and shove them under the door, little pieces of bread, and try to feed her like that. The neighbors actually started to say, where is she? Where's Susan? And that's when the boy said, this is where she is. And they called the police. When they found her, she was emaciated. She was barely like 20 kilos.
Oh my God. So did they jail them or anything, or put them in prison, or what happened?
Unfortunately, I don't know what happened to the father. I just know the story about what happened with Susan and how she was rescued. And the sad thing is that her bones had actually started conforming to the way that she had been sitting on the mat.
Oh my. And so is she alive still?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah,
she is alive today.
Alive.
And just because she was a young girl practicing the religion that wasn't her father's religion. And so there's a lot of this prejudice going on all over the world. And I'm just wondering why the media hasn't really gone into this or talked about it. I mean, we're listening night and day about the Pledge of Allegiance or the not singing the Star of a Single Banner or what have you, and all what's going on in the United States, but what's going on in the rest of the world, we're really not hearing about this. And this is probably one of the reasons you came on the show today, to make people and our viewers aware of what's going on with Christianity.
I hope so.
And it's really, really, it's really pretty hard to swallow. I mean, and so the reason Christianity persecution occurs because in other countries is because they want them to believe in what they want them to believe in. And where do you see this going in the future? What do you think? Can anybody help? What can we do to help this and to make it known what's going on, and how do we get this across?
Well, where I foresee it going, I mean, I would love to bring all these people out of wherever they live and put them somewhere safe where they don't have to live in oppression. Unfortunately, that's not the way the world works. But there are organizations out there that are going and helping victims of persecution and helping them rebuild the churches that have been burned down, rebuild their homes, helping them with shelter, food, education, job training, a lot of things out there. So they're trying to make a better situation for them in the world they live in right now.
How do they get in there with all the other, groups around them, that don't, how do they help these people? They're kind of going into a territory that's very dangerous.
Well, just like any, you look at Doctors Without Borders, and they go into third world countries where they might be getting shot at, some things might be happening to them, but they look at the big picture, they look at what is more important to them. So these people that go out there, these organizations that work with these people, they are fully aware that their life may be lost in this process.
Now, your family is Christian,
yes.
Correct? And your parents were born in Pakistan, correct? You were born
in Pakistan.
And you came here, how old were you?
I was very young, about a year and a half old.
Okay. And, but they were there, and were they treated being Christian?
I heard about this almost every single day from my father, about all the things that he had to go through, about how he wasn't able to ever get ahead at work because he was Christian, how he was discriminated against because he was Christian. I have cousins that can attest to how they were treated, bullied, and that's one of the reasons why they wanted to leave Pakistan, so that we can come to a place where we have freedom to practice whatever religion we want. That's one of the reasons I am the patriot that I am, because I really respect the religious freedoms that we're given in this country that I don't have anywhere else.
Now, you come across, I'm sure, Pakistani Muslims, right, here in the United States. How did they feel about Christianity? Is there, being that they're Muslim in the United States rather than in Pakistan, what are their feelings about? Have you been able to form any friendships with any Pakistani Muslims?
I have, and honestly, we never talked about religion. Those people were not part of the minority that believe in extremism. Those are part of, just really good people. Honesty, some of the most giving, caring people. So, I mean, over here, I haven't come across any religious persecution, by any Islamic people. But on Facebook is another thing.
Tell me about Facebook.
Well, I don't understand why people feel the need to openly mock somebody else's religion in a way that is just so hard to swallow that sometimes you have to say something, but the moment you say something, then almost instantly you get all these bullying comments from other people that say that you're small-minded, you're backwards, you believe in a fairy tale. Well, if I'm small-minded and backwards and I believe in a fairy tale, why don't you leave me and my fairy tale people alone? Don't have to say anything negative. We're not bothering anyone else. True believers in Christ, they don't try to bother anyone else. They want to help people.
So they're doing that to bully you, to bring out, so they can pick an argument. Yeah, because it happens, it happens in different faiths, and I think we were talking about earlier that somebody that used to be very close to me, and when she started putting on Facebook, it was very offensive to me because they were putting our president in a Nazi uniform doing the Nazi salute. And for Jewish people, they thought it was, they didn't realize how people that are from the Jewish faith, it's very traumatic to look at your president in a Nazi uniform saluting, and during what happened during the Holocaust and everything, it's very, very offensive. And people that aren't Jewish and people that are doing this, it's also, we feel, being bullied the same way.
I've heard some really negative anti-Semitic comments, and I believe that all of this, almost all of it, is stemmed from lack of knowledge. I mean, some people, they talk, why doesn't Palestine just kick all the Jews out? I'm like, well, how could you say that? They're people too, and they belong there just as much as anyone else. And it's just so sad that I think this generation is so much more into their own personal lives and their agenda about who the next person they're going to meet and what they're going to put on social media. They have no background information about any of these religions or the persecutions they've been through. Like the terrible things that happened in the camps in Auschwitz. I mean, so many books and material that can help you relate and understand. And these people growing up, they're in this digital age, they're tied to their phone. They don't see these things because it's not what Kim Kardashian did or what whoever football player didn't stand up or whatever happened, So that's part of why this generation is just being fed garbage.
Yes, and it's very sad because I really relate to what your father went through, because my father went through here in the United States very similar, that he was Jewish, and Jewish people years ago didn't work for big companies, big corporations. They started working for themselves, like they were tailors and they were even they went into law. They were doctors, and they were they worked with their hands, and they opened up businesses. And my father happened to work for a corporation, and he couldn't tell them that he was Jewish because he would have lost his job. And it happened because of that. I didn't know, I didn't find out that I was Jewish until I was maybe about 10 years old, 11 years old, because my father was in charge of the holiday parties at the corporation, and if they had found out, he would have lost his job. And this is the United States, and this was not, I mean, we're talking about in the 40s, you know, in the 40s, this was what's going on. If you were Jewish, you couldn't, a lot of people wouldn't rent to you, and you know, you couldn't move into certain areas, certain neighborhoods like we have today, you know, like Kenilworth, Winnetka, some of those areas would not sell to Jewish people. And it's a very traumatizing. And when you told me this and all what you had to go through, our people had to go through very similar. And here it's the United States. We're not talking about, you know, countries of the Middle East or North Korea. I mean, this actually happened in the United States.
You know, not too long ago, I think was it 7 years ago or so, I was working at a customer service sales job, and my manager, boss, she was basically always sat next to me. Her desk was next to mine. You know, people would always come in and for some reason not start up conversations about Jesus, talk about it somehow. Maybe because I was praying for it, but but also because I think it was the way I was living my life, and I was just trying to reflect that piece. And people would be like, "Hey, what does he have? Why does he have that? What's so important about that?" And they would talk to me about it. And my boss didn't like that at all. After a little while, I did lose that job, and that was mainly the reason. And one of the things she said to me when I was leaving was, "Hey, you know, some advice for your next job." I'm like, "What?" "Try not to be so religious." I was doing my job. I was doing a good job. I wasn't hurting anyone. People were talking to me. I didn't seek up people to ask them, "Hey, what do you believe in? Let me talk to you about Jesus." It wasn't like that at all. But, you know, it's prevalent in so many forms.
And here it's the United States still, and that you lost your job because you were talking about
Jesus
or Christianity, but it wasn't on your, you know, it was during a break or whatever. It wasn't during your job. And people, why do people find it very offensive, you know, about their religion? If you want to talk about your religion, why do people feel, they feel threatened by it for some reason? Why do you think so?
I really believe that people feel threatened by Christianity is because they can't come to terms with their own sin.
What?
Their own sin. They can't come to terms with it. Either they have no moral compass or they feel guilty inside, but they want to continue living the way that they want to live, and they don't want to live the way that in their heart of hearts they know is the right way to live.
And what are the Christians here doing about the persecution that's going on in all these different countries? And I have a list of many countries that that you know that it was kind of that I was kind of surprised.
Well, one of the best resources right there that you're looking at is the opendoorsusa.org.
Okay.
One of the things that they've created is a World Watch Monitor. Also in that illustration you're looking at right there, that shows all the countries, over 50 countries right now, and they're rated in level of their persecution.
Right.
And you know, they're a great resource. They do a lot for people. There's opendoorsusa.org. There's the Barnabas Fund. There's Dover International. Knights of Columbus even have something where they are providing relief for Christian refugees.
I mean, we got North Korea, we got Somalia, we got Afghanistan. And Afghanistan, we're trying to, you know, trying to help the leader there. We just sent in troops. Of course, Pakistan, Sudan, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Iran. I mean, some of these countries, I could see why.
You see the common tie.
Yeah, I could see this common tie. But certain ones that are trying to get American relief and everything else, we shouldn't be able to pay. I don't think that the United States should be paying any of these countries that persecute any religion.
Right.
And I think maybe that should start there.
Yeah, it should.
And you know, we support them. We give them millions of dollars. We're even sending our troops there. And, you know, I think that should be, if you want our money, if you want our troops, if you want our help, you cannot persecute people the way you're doing.
You know, Christians are primarily the targets, but, you know, in these countries where they have Islamic extremism, I mean, Hindus and Sikh people, alike, Buddhists and Jews are all persecuted the same way.
Yeah, I heard Buddhists are getting,
Oh, yeah.
and they're a peace loving. I mean, all they want is peace. The Buddhists. It's a very for people that have any kind of turmoil in their life, if they they go to the Buddhists and they for just comfort and peace.
They want peace. People go to religion because they want moral compass and they want peace. They want to seek their God the way that they want to, and they don't want to be bothered.
I was looking at one of the papers that I have to. They're teaching this in the schools actually,
They are.
which is really. I was really shocked when I read about some of these schools are being. That they're actually teaching small children.
Have you seen the videos?
Yeah, education system, here it is. I should mark this. Public school textbooks used by all children often have a strong Islamic orientation. Public schools and madrasa teachers had limited awareness and understanding of religious minorities and their beliefs, and were divided on whether religious minorities were citizens. Now, these are the teachers that are expressing their negative views about Christians and Jews, and successfully are transmitting their biases to students. How can this be addressed? If your small children, little kids, are getting their doctoration in very young age,
and that's all they're going to believe, unfortunately. And it's really sad. And it goes back to, children, having the education about, what is going on. I mean, a lot of people don't even know what's going on in their own religion. A lot of these people that are, in Islamic people, like, a lot of them are very knowledgeable. I'm not saying that they're not, but the way that they work is that, the mosque is the cleric, he recites the Quran. They have to memorize the Quran to get to that point where they can be the leader of their mosque, right? So everyone that goes in there just listens to the word. But like a lot of people in a lot of religions, they don't actually ever open the book themselves and read and question it. No, they don't question it. They say, this is the way things are, this is the way we're taught, this is our culture, this is ingrained in our culture. So that's why they want to keep out any other areas where anyone could question them or think a different way.
Well, we have 2 minutes to really solve the problems here. And I think that possibly one of the ways to solve is to get to the children, talk to the children. How can that be done if if the school system is teaching one way, how can you indoctrinate kids, at an early age? What can, to show there are other religions, and it's okay if you don't believe in them, fine, but but they're a religion in itself, and this is part of, we should share, their, we don't have to believe in what they believe.
But nobody should have to suffer like that.
No, yes, to be abused, to be hurt, to be punished, like the little girl that had to sit on a mat for, 3 months? And she, thank God she's alive, but how to reach the younger generation before they become, the same type of person.
Honestly, I wish that the media would show more about what's going on in the world. I can't necessarily change the media, but what we can do as people is we can become more aware of what's going on in the world and do some research, ourselves. And these groups that are out there helping, I mean, it's just a drop in a bucket, honestly, because there's so much going on. There's only so many people they can get to. And there's people around the world that desperately need help, and they need all of us to be aware of what's going on so we can do our part to help them, because all lives matter. It's not religious or color or anything. All lives matter.
Right. It's just not, Black lives matter or white lives matter, but all lives matter. And I think this is what we need to convey to the world, because look what's happening. I mean, years ago, religion divided us, and we thought we grew up from that, and we're having the same problems all over again, and it's becoming very intense. And for young Jewish kids that are in we did last month, they're getting threatened in their colleges. I mean, it's all over, and it needs to be addressed. We need to have harmony. And I really want to thank you, Asher, for being on the show, to speaking out for your people.
Thank you.
thank you so
Thank
much
you for the opportunity.
Thank you, and we put this on YouTube, and we hope all our viewers out there can tune in and really understand what's really happening, for Christians, and to speak up for the Christian people, and so there's no more abuse, and we could do something for them. Again, I want to thank you for being here, and I'm glad you came out to the show today, because thank you again.